We're celebrating her most recent book, Thrill Seekers, and we even have several of the athletes featured in the book here with us tonight. So we're very excited. All right, I see most of us have started to join, so we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Hi again, everyone. Welcome to PMP Live. My name is Michelle, and I'm a bookseller with the Children and Teens Department. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are so excited to have McCallum Staats with us to celebrate her most recent book, Thrill Seekers. We are also thrilled to have with us many of the athletes featured in the book. Tonight, we'll enjoy a panel discussion with Angela Hawse, Jill Heinerth, Melanie Curtis, Anne-Marie Stevens, Sara Mudallal, Elladee Brown, and Brittany Leavitt, alongside the author. We'll drop the link for purchasing Thrill Seekers into the chat box. So if you don't already own a copy, here's your chance. Also, we're going to have signed copies by Anne while supplies last. So you can definitely check out our website for even more books by her. And tonight you can ask the author and athletes questions by clicking Q&A located at the bottom of your screen. You can also vote on your favorite questions, and at the end, we'll have time to go over some together. As always, please remember this is a creative, safe space, and we ask that folks be respectful of one another and any questions and comments. Now on to tonight's event. It is my pleasure to introduce critically acclaimed author McCallum Staats. Anne grew up in the wilds of British Columbia before moving to Maryland. She teaches high school students and is passionate about writing. She's written several children's books, including The Secret Life of Math and the Eat Your Homework series, in addition to the nonfiction account Women Heroes of the U.S. Army. No stranger to adventure herself, she's even skied on sand in the UAE. Described as an engaging, energetic, and unabashedly woman-centric adventure by Kirkus Reviews, Thrill Seekers highlights 15 women involved in extreme sports and their motivations, experiences, and dedication. And now I'm excited to turn it over to Anne and our panel. So enjoy.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, what an honor and a pleasure it is to be here tonight. I just want to thank Politics and Prose, the best bookstore around, fantastic. Thank you so much for hosting us. And of course, thank you to all the rock star extreme athletes who you can see on the screen. So exciting to be here with you as well. So I just want to say a year ago when I found out that March was the publication date for Thrill Seekers, I was like, yay, COVID will be done. We'll be able to, get back to normal. Everything will be fantastic. But then, here we are virtually. But it's actually a blessing in disguise because we've got Jill from Canada, we've got Sara from California, we've got Elladee from Vancouver, we've got people from all over the place. So this is truly, truly a fantastic situation. So there's a lot of us, and I want to make sure that we hear from each and every person. So what I thought we would do first is we would introduce ourselves, introduce our sport, and also if you could please just say one word to describe your sport. And I'll go first. So my name is McCallum Staats, and I am the writer of Thrill Seekers, that's my sport. And the word that I'm going to say today is wow. That's just, wow, there you go. All right, so let's start with Melanie, and then Jill, Anne-Marie, Elladee, Angela, Sara, and Brittany.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Melanie Curtis. It's an honor to be here tonight in this room, in this book, in this cohort. My bullet points are I'm a life coach, I'm a speaker, I'm an author, and I'm a professional skydiver. The single word for me, for my sport, for skydiving is freedom.
And I'm Jill Heinerth, and I am a cave diver. And I think the best word to describe what I do is exploration.
My name is Anne-Marie Stevens. I'm a scuba diver, but I'm also a full-time elementary teacher and a children's book author. And I would say that my word is unforgettable.
Elladee?
Hi, my name is Elladee, and I'm a mountain bike adventurer. And I would say that the best word to describe what I do would be epic.
Hi, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here and very excited about Anne's book and being part of it. My name is Angela Hawse. I am an alpinist, and I'm also a full-time mountain guide. And I would describe my sport as empowering.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sara. I'm a parkour athlete, and one word that would describe the sport overall would be rewarding.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brittany Leavitt. I am a climber as well as an early educator. And everyone kind of took all the one word, so I'm going to make a joke about my sport and call it Rocky.
That's cute. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. All right, now to the good stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to take turns, and I'm going to let everybody expound a little bit on their sport. I actually gave everybody 5 questions to choose from before tonight. And the questions are, how did you get into the sport and what makes it so special for you? What are the challenges in this sport? What advice do you have for young people who might be interested in pursuing this sport? Did you ever feel like quitting, and what made you keep going? And what has your experience in this sport been like? Can you share an interesting anecdote? Now, because there's a lot of us and we don't have tons of time, I'm going to ask you to answer maybe 1 or 2 questions, and I'll do it too, but I'll go last. So I get to hear from all of you first. So let's launch right in, and we'll start with Melanie. And Melanie, if you want to choose which question or 1 or 2 questions, go for it.
Yeah, I think the origin story for me is always really just useful because it so impacts everything that happens after it. So how did I get into this sport and what makes it so special to me? So aviation is in my family. My dad is a pilot, and I grew up around aviation. My first flight was when I was 3 months old. We literally have an airport at my house, like a grass strip behind my dad's house at a dead end road. So I grew up around it, and basically my dad and his best friend, who happened to be a skydiver, started a drop zone, which is a skydiving center at our house. And so as a kid, I grew up seeing this, and I sat through the first jump course a lot of times. At 16 years old, I could have jumped because you can jump when you have a parent's permission, but I was too scared. And I just sort of kept sitting through the first jump course and kept doing it, kept feeling anxious about it. And then one day when I was 18, I kind of got sick of worrying about it. And I made this decision. I said, okay, tomorrow I'm doing it. And I sat through the first jump course with intention that day to actually jump for the first time ever. And so the fear that precedes skydiving, a lot of people say, I could never jump out of a perfectly good airplane. And they, it's like meaning I could just never do this thing. I could never contemplate that. And so what I can test is sort of on the end of that phrase is I could never jump out of a perfectly good airplane and live or not get injured, like something really bad. They imagine something bad will happen. So that magnifies the fear. And so when I first jumped and I landed and I was alive and I did well, and I did this thing that I thought that I could not do, it forever altered my psyche into not this life coach, oh, I can do anything I put my mind to. It's more if fear is telling me I can't do something, I have to at least question whether that's true or not. And so that's supported me throughout my whole life. The other thing that I'll answer if I have time, I know it's a short period, so just tell me if it's over.
Yeah, maybe 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Yeah, so
over.
The other thing I was going to share is that even further down in my career, I probably had all 8,000 jumps at this point. I had a bit of a fear phase. And I ended up having to work through that, even that far into the sport. And one of the things that really brought me back was going back to my roots of helping young people find the base joy of why we do this, and me going back to the base joy of freedom and fun and community that the sport brings to my life. So that's what helped me really get back, is simplifying it way back down to its roots and focusing my time and energy on lifting other people up.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Melanie. And I have to just say that, everybody's story is so unique, but there's all these common threads. So yeah, it's really, really amazing. So we're going to go on to Jill, and Jill has a couple of books that you can see on her screen as well. So check those out as well. So take it away, Jill. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I'm a full-time cave diver, and that actually is my occupation. So, my business card actually says explorer on it. And so my career is kind of made up of, writing and photography, underwater cinematography, and a whole mix of things. And I think the greatest challenge, there's been many, of course. It's often spoken of as the most dangerous occupation you could take on. But really, for me, it was finding a way to do that as a full-time career. I knew I wanted to be underwater. I knew I wanted to be exploring and documenting these places that nobody's ever been before. But it was challenging to figure out how to make that a career, and to figure out where the next paycheck might come from that would enable me to stay the course. I actually started in advertising. I'm an artist. With a degree in visual communications and design. And at one point in my life, I was teaching scuba and working in a studio, and then decided just to sell everything I owned and dedicate myself to figuring out how to carve myself a niche and work in what is really a male-dominated endeavor. And thankfully, 30 years later, it's all worked out.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, no, it's incredible. All right. So next is Anne Marie, and she actually has a couple books behind her as well. So check those out as well.
Yes. So when I'm not teaching or writing one of my children's books, I'm trying to scuba dive, and I always have to do mine on the breaks that the teachers get for school. So I, go as many times as I can. But I really, when I was younger, I didn't know I wanted to be a scuba diver. But when I look back, especially when Anne interviewed me, my family spent summers at the pool. We were there every day, and my sisters joined the swim team. And so they were official, and they swam the laps and knew how to do all of that fancy stuff. And I was wrapping my legs around each other, diving to the bottom of the pool, playing dolphin and mermaid, and throwing coins in the deep end and going down and fetching them. And that was just kind of my obsession with the water. And I started traveling right when I started teaching. And I went to Australia, and I was snorkeling in the Great Barrier Reef, and I wasn't loving it. And my sister and I were laughing. We kept choking on the water. And at one point I looked down and I see scuba divers below me. And I knew that they were having more fun than I was. So I came home from that trip and got my certification. And kind of like Melanie was saying, you do your first dive, your first time of doing what it is that you think it is you want to do, and it changes everything. After I did that dive, I couldn't get enough, and I felt so different under there than I do on land. My family laughs because on land, I'm afraid of, gross stuff like certain bugs, and I don't want to be in the mud. But underwater, I'll touch anything, hold anything, follow after sharks to get a picture. It's just like I was meant to be there. And I really don't let anything stop me from going or from traveling. I sacrifice, eating out. I don't get manicures. I don't spend money on a lot of things that my friends spend money on, so I can save it for trips, just so I can get back under the water again, because I live in Virginia in a city and there's no fun place to dive here. So I have to leave to find them.
And there's a great story about sharks in the book. I love that story. It's so interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And now we have Elladee, who was actually my very first person that I interviewed. I didn't even know why I wanted to write this book, because I was like, sports, I don't really know. I don't really know that much about sports. I don't know if I really like sports. Do I want to write about this? And then Elladee, I talked to her and she hooked me. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is this incredible person who's done these incredible things. And suddenly there was this whole new world for me to write about. So yeah, go ahead, Elladee. Tell us.
I didn't know that piece, Anne. So thanks for sharing. That's awesome. I kind of had a similar trajectory as Jill did, in the sense that I've been fortunate to have mountain biking also be my career, as it started out as my passion when I was in my mid-teens. And what really kind of got me hooked, and it seems like a common theme, is that there was this challenge, kind of fear piece that somehow was overcome. And I find that, when I teach mountain biking as well, and I do some guiding and I document it through photo and video. And it's one of those sports that if you don't stick with it for the duration, then you're going to be discouraged to keep up with it. So I think that's one thing, or a message to particularly young girls that are starting out with it. There's always that hump to get over. And I know that when usually I'll take some time off in the winter off my bike, and I'll get back to some of those first rides. And I've been riding for over 35 years, but sometimes those first couple of rides, it feels like, can I even do this? It just feels so foreign. So it's really about sticking with it and staying determined, and just kind of jumping through the hoops of what it takes to get to the other side, and then just building on that passion. And I think for me, being a young woman and doing something as challenging as mountain biking, it's just helped me in so many other aspects of my life, knowing that I kind of had the challenges of mountain biking, and I was able to work through them in some of the same ways that you work through other life issues. And it's just one of those things, when you follow your passion, obviously it's really great to be able to do it as a career as well, but then it just spills over into so many other areas of your life that makes it easier to get through life challenges. And then obviously to have mountain biking as my sort of Zen zone to kind of tune out and also just be present with myself. So that's kind of my story around it, and something that I plan to do for the rest of my life.
Well, thank you so much. And next we have Angela, who has climbed mountains all over the world, including almost to the top of Everest. I can't even imagine, but take it away. Go ahead, Angela.
Yeah, it's really remarkable, all the common threads here. And I love hearing everybody's stories, because we're all in male-dominated sports. And it's so nice to see powerful women and just know that we're out there inspiring other girls to get into this stuff, which seemingly isn't accessible, but it really is if you just dive in and you pursue your passions, like Elladee said. And I also happen to be very fortunate, like Jill and Elladee, to that my sport is also my career. And I got into my sport through college. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about like how to get into mountain climbing. Like, not everybody has a mountain in their backyard, and I certainly didn't. Where I grew up in West Virginia, but I was always in trees. Like, all I wanted to do was climb trees. So inherently I had some climbing in me, and I didn't even know rock climbing was a thing until I went to college. But one of the things that helped me get into mountain climbing, one was having that passion. I like looked at a mountain and there was something about it that just like called to me. It's like, I just have to go to the top. I know it's going to be hard. I know I can dig deep and do it, but it's something that I really want to try and give it my all. And I don't know if I'll make it, but I'm gonna try. And once you try something once and you succeed, it makes it so much easier to try again. and know that it's okay to fail, because it's not necessarily the summit that we're going for. It's the journey along the way with all these sports. And so for me, getting into it, one was the passion of climbing, but two, the thing that has helped me maintain the ability to do that for over 3 decades is durability. And like all these athletes here, you have to build a base to be durable so your body can withstand doing these sports, which involve a lot of repetition, using your muscles the same way over and over again. And I'm sure in all of our sports, there's common themes about injuries that, someone is a skier that's going to have knee injuries, probably. Someone who I don't know what all your guys' injuries are. Maybe like broken collarbones with the mountain biking. I don't know, but you have to be durable. So for young girls that want to have an adventurous life, I'd say get involved in team sports in school, build a base of fitness. And that's going to last you the rest of your life, is just starting out with your muscles being able to act. And you'll build on that the rest of your life, and you'll find that you thrive on being fit and having fitness be a part of your life. And then go to a climbing gym. Climbing gyms are awesome places. A lot of schools have climbing programs. And then just start hiking and exploring. And one of the beauties about my sport and a lot of these different sports is that you build relationships with your friends and your clients that last a lifetime. Like some of my clients have become my best friends, and we share things in nature that you wouldn't do necessarily by yourself. And you have these experiences that just build so much trust and love in each other. And you get away from all this technology. You can't carry everything on your back. So you live simply, you live by fair means, and you're out there having adventures together. And it's incredibly rewarding. So can't encourage young girls enough to just start getting involved in sports and find those sports that are lifelong pursuits like all of us have.
And thank you for your backdrop too, Angela. That's so inspiring. That beautiful mountain right there. And then great segue, because Sara, didn't you, I saw a picture of you where you hurt was it your wrist or your arm?
My elbow.
You injured yourself. Oh, your elbow. That's right.
Yeah, it was actually from rock climbing. I was at the very top, and my foot slipped, and you never land on your elbow. But injuries in parkour, which is what I do, I haven't really broken anything, knock on wood. But I'm just gonna probably answer how did I get into it. So I guess we all had the same thread, like everyone's saying, growing up. We all had a calling. So as a kid, I always loved jumping on things, jumping off things. Always watching, my favorite movie was Tarzan. So he was always jumping on trees, maneuvering with quick agile movement, like any monkey or gorilla. And so growing up, I graduated college, and I was wondering, what I want to do. I want to do something very fun and exciting. And my friend told me that there was a parkour gym 10 minutes away from our house. And so I went in there, and it was just a huge playground for adults where you don't get judged jumping on, jumping off stuff. And I took my first class of parkour, and I never left. I was literally hooked. I loved it. Just the idea of what the body can do is so amazing. And so I kept with it, and I just kept posting stuff on Instagram. I kind of see that as my diary now, because I look back at it and I kind of cringe from where I first started, from where I am today. And it's such a beautiful thing to actually have people follow you back and actually be that inspiration to them. All you're doing is just having fun doing what you do. So it's kind of a fun thing how that turned around. I ended up being on the news. Someone did a story on me. I was on American Ninja Warrior. This just everything just tumbling back and back and back to back. It was really cool. The challenges for the sport, 100% mental. the first thing that what I do now from what I used to do back then is when I look at a challenge and if I immediately think that I can do it, then I can do it. You can't really question yourself on that. It's just like, it's your inner self telling you like, you can do this. There's of course people in parkour, like we have to start small, like everyone else in the sport, you have to start small and then you build up your confidence from there. So that's like the basic challenge from it. And, you know, once you understand how much power to put in jumps and how much to pull back and things like that, you know, you're just gonna eventually feel the flow. It's just gonna come out of you, and you will do it subconsciously. And then at the end, and you look back and you're like, wow, I can't believe I did that. Like that's actually pretty cool. And the last thing is advice for young people for the sport. Now we all know, like Angela said, this is all of the sports that we do is a male-dominated sport, so it could be very discouraging to even start. For parkour, it 100% male-dominant. Of course, a lot of girls are coming in now, but there's what we call sessions, jam sessions, and everyone comes in. You know, we're all in this spot, jumping around, you know, looking at other people, and most of them are men. But to me, with that, I think of it, I actually look up to men because like they have like clearly like, you know, they have more muscle than women biologically. So when you look at them and like see them jump, or and you ask them questions, which I wasn't afraid to do because, you know, you have to ask questions of how to do things. Believe it or not, like they were so welcoming, so inviting, teaching how to be better. You know, you can look up to the inspire, and then you create your own like creativity and personality with this. So my advice is don't be afraid to do something that you will, you know, that you love to do, even though something, you know, like male dominance in the sport, like that might stop you. But in the long run, if you love it, you have to go for it. Don't be afraid to ask questions, you know, get in there, even if you're the only girl, literally. So, I mean, even me with a hijab on, right? I'm like, not just different, but completely different from like everyone, what they wear or what they practice. So it was a big challenge for me, but I mean, I didn't care because I really wanted to pursue it. So that's my story. Sorry, I took so long. My bad.
That was awesome. But so Sara, your sport is a little bit unusual in that, could you define what it is, parkour? Because I didn't know what parkour was before I started talking to you. So maybe that's my age. I don't know.
No, I mean, it's a fairly new sport. I mean, so parkour, what it is to specify is going from point A to point B as creatively as possible when there's obstacles in between. Like if you're thinking of the Ninja Warrior course, how there's obstacles like that, but imagine just solid objects and you make your creative flow to it. You can flip, you can, well, if flip is like really a main thing. And then there's a lot of creative ways to like turn around and like roll and differently things like that. So it definitely works all your muscles and it teaches you how to fall. So that's very, you know, needed, how to fall.
Well, yeah. Hopefully Brittany has never fallen because she goes up rock faces. So, so please don't fall, Brittany.
I fall every day. So yeah, I wanted to kind of answer question 4 and 3 a little bit and switched it up. Just kind of getting into a quick spiel of how I got into the sport. You know, a lot of folks have said community. So I was surrounded by folks who were climbing in college and person that would hang out by the rock wall and hop on and what we call rainbowing, like not really follow routes and like understand terminology and all that stuff. And kind of full circle moment, thinking now I kind of work in the climbing field and like being able to not only do it for myself, but also support other folks in the community space. And so recognizing that, like, one of the questions was like, have you ever felt like quitting and what made you keep going? And a lot. There's been points where there's months or years where I just kind of gave up the sport before finding community. And recognizing, like, as people have said, like a lot of the sports we're in are heavily male dominated, but also thinking about being a Black woman, trying to get into the sport, like it adds like another layer of it. And so when you want to try to pursue something, ask these questions, you often get, you know, the glances or kind of like you not support or mentorship that you want And so there was times where I was like, I guess this isn't for me. And also thinking too, like climbing is actually kind of expensive when, depending on what you want to do, like even getting into it, when you think about your shoes and your harness and your ropes, thinking about driving to locations, gym memberships and stuff like that, like, as I said before, I'm an early educator, so, you know, you're not making that much money. And so recognizing that was also a barrier for myself as well. And then, you know, kind of over time navigating and figuring out how I could push through that. So there's a really great climber named Chelsea Griffey, and she was the first woman that I saw that actually represented myself in the climbing space of saying, I see a Black woman who's climbing Yosemite, doing a 12B in braids and hanging off. And I'm like, okay, so there is a space for me here. I also have to work on building it for myself, but also building it for others. And so kind of thinking about the question of like what you give advice to young people, recognizing that in climbing, like we talk about community, especially when we're thinking about Black, Indigenous people of color, we're building those spaces and stories for ourselves. Oftentimes we're not seen, or our stories aren't being told in magazines, or, you know, we're not on the covers and things like that. But in reality, we've always been part of it. You know, going back from Chelsea Griffey to Emily Taylor to Sophia Dannenberg, like these are voices that oftentimes aren't recognized, but we were here. And so recognizing for young girls who want to get into this sport too, is like, there are programs and groups that are focusing on girls to get introduced to climbing and doing it in a space where it's safe to ask the questions, to try to have fun, and also recognizing there's like a little bit more besides physical, there's an emotional part of it. You know, you're thinking about taking yourself out of that comfort zone or making that next move, or as Anne said, like giving yourself that try to fall and like allowing to do so in a safer space. And so, you know, there's so many spaces. Thinking about adaptive climbing groups to Climb for Change that has been created, Brown Girls Climbing, Brown Girls Climb, Brothers Climbing. These are all great groups that have programs, but then also have, I guess, inspired other folks to create programs, not only for younger folks, but also for older folks too. You know, we want to create this intergenerational connection to the sports and like, I don't know, things that they're into. And so recognizing that that's also a key thing. But yeah, that's kind of like my little.
Awesome. No, fantastic. And again, thank you so much for everybody. It's my turn. So like I said, I wasn't really, you know, I didn't really know anything about sports, and, you know, Elladee did hook me, but then as I got a chance to talk to so many interesting people, the people on the screen that you see right now and the others in the book, I was just like kind of amazed at the common threads. And you've probably heard, you know, taken note of some of these common threads, just this feeling of confidence, this feeling of passion, this feeling of, you know, it doesn't matter if I'm not going to make a ton of money. I want to do what I want to do. And, you know, just this love for the sport. But there was still kind of this distance between these people and me. I'm a writer. I sit at my desk. You know, this is the exercise that I get with my fingers. And, you know, there was still this distance. And so then I decided, you know what, if I'm really going to write this book, I need to do some hands-on research. So I went out and I actually did 3 things. I did a ride along in a Formula racing car. One of the chapters in the book is about Formula racing. And when I went to it was actually the Richmond Speedway that I went to in Virginia. It was loud and it was noisy. It was, you know, it smelled like, you know, fuel, but it was those senses were so amazing. And it was just, you know, my heart started pumping and the adrenaline went, and then I got to put on that really cool helmet. And, you know, and then we went fast. I mean, we just zipped around the track really fast, and it was really fun. The second thing I did, and again, these are baby steps compared to what these people do, but I did a beginner scuba lesson, and I was at this resort, and they offered, you know, it was like maybe a 4 or 5 hour endeavor all in. And I remember just getting into the first step was going into the swimming pool, into the deep end, and just having, you know, your oxygen on and breathing through. And, you know, Anne Marie, I don't know if you remember the first time you did that, but I was like this is wrong. This is wrong. I mean, I saw the surface of the water was here. So I easily could have just, gone up. But just to take those breaths in, like that was the scariest part to me. Later on, we actually went into the ocean and I saw a stingray, and it just went up and it started floating away. I kept looking into the murk and unlike Anne-Marie, I didn't want to see a shark. Please, God, don't let me see a shark. I did not. The stingray was cool enough. But then I got out of that and it was, again, this feeling of, wow, like if I did that, it just, ramped up my confidence. And then the third thing I did, and here we go, Melanie, again, inspired by these wonderful, wonderful women, I decided to go tandem skydiving. And okay, it was tandem, I get it. It's not, it's not like these people do, but baby steps, right? You got to start somewhere. So I got hooked up to this guy, to my instructor, and we went up into this airplane. And, I really didn't feel scared, not one bit. And well, there was one tiny bit. But so the first part, though, I really wasn't scared. I was just excited. We were hanging off the airplane and he's like, "You ready?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so I think, there's actually a video of me. And as I'm falling, I think I said wow about 55,000 times because I was just so, it was just the word. And then, and then he pulled this parachute. And then, of course, it's just pure peace and pure freedom. You've got this bird's eye view of the world. And there you are above it all. There's nothing up there to get in the way of your feeling of freedom. I was a tiny bit scared when he loosened up my straps because we were so tightly hooked onto each other. So he loosened up my shoulder straps and my leg straps. And I was like, "Don't loosen those too much." And he's like, don't worry. But besides that momentary feeling of fear, it really was an amazing feeling. And so after this hands-on research, I was like, wow. And now I get to write about this. And I get to share this with young people. And it doesn't matter if your passion is something as radical as, Elladee's mountain biking. If you start go down those mountains, I mean, that is unbelievable. But it doesn't have to be something like that. It can be putting your hand up in the classroom. It can be, drawing a picture. It can be playing the flute. It can be anything. And it's just what all of these women taught me was that it's just doing something that you are passionate about and that calls to you and just not giving up and, making sure that you try it and give it your all. So anyway, so I thank you guys. I thank you very much for, giving me the opportunity to write about your stories. And, it was just fun and fascinating and sometimes hard because, sometimes you're like, here's the blank page. But overall, just a really inspiring and wonderful experience. So I thank you. And I think now we get to go to audience questions.
That sounds good. Thank you all so much for sharing. That was incredible. So audience, you still have time to ask a question. If you haven't already, you can still click on Q&A at the bottom of your screen and add one there. You can also vote on your favorite questions, which is going to move them to the top of the list. And we'll go through as many as possible before our time ends today. Also, Anne, as you're sharing, Olga just wanted to give you a shout out though, that begin to think of jumping out of a perfectly good airplane as pilot. So she said, kudos to you for trying something new and stepping out of your comfort zone. And congratulations to everyone for finding your passion and going for it. So just wanted to share that from Olga. She also has a question. So we'll see if any of you feel led to speak about it, just feel free to jump in. But what change would you like to see in your sport? So that could be practical, that could be on a deeper level, whatever you think about in regards to your experience. So any change that you would like to see?
I could speak to that. I'd like to see the sport of alpinism and climbing move away from a competitive feeling like we have to achieve a certain level of difficulty in order to be seen or to be validated in the sport, and that we focus more on our interaction with the environment and more appreciation for nature and reverence for the places that we're exploring.
Well said. Anybody else on your heart? Yep, Brittany, go for it.
I mean, Angela said a good chunk. Like adding the additional of, you know, who is seen in the sport in climbing, especially, and how the stories are being told. You know, we're kind of seeing that happen right now, but I think over time it shouldn't be such an effort as we have kind of experienced like the past couple months. And then also just creating more space for folks to just feel comfortable to trying it out without it feeling so like you walk into a gym space, which is oftentimes folks say they walk into a gym space and they don't even know where to begin and they feel intimidated. And so over time, hopefully we can create that idea of what, when we say community, what it actually really means in the climbing space.
Yeah, I'd echo what Brittany said, both then and what she had shared in her original thing, is this idea of inclusion, like expanded inclusion and representation. So if we even just look at women only, skydiving is, women are underrepresented in skydiving. We're only 13% of the whole collective. And so that's something actually my team and I are working on, is to really elevate the idea of women in skydiving and broader representation around equality at large, and just getting more women, people of color in our sport, because it absolutely has started as a white and male dominated sport.
All right. Well, thank you all.
Sorry, it's sort of the same. Oh yeah, sorry. It's sort of the same in cave diving too. And if I had one wish, it would be that more of the people who are involved in education and mentoring do so in a nurturing way. I mean, I do teach cave diving, and people are really scared when they come and they start their class, and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm going to do all right. And I'm like, hey, listen, you're supposed to make mistakes or you wouldn't need to take my class. You know, it's my job to help you through this process. And so I wish there was more of that in all of our sports, where, you know, some of that intimidation went away and some of that really sort of strong ego disappeared.
Well, that kind of leads us into another question from Jerome. He mentioned several of you are educators. How do you use your sports experience to inspire your students? So does that ever overlap?
Mine overlaps all the time. Every trip I come back from, I share stories, I share pictures, I share videos. And next thing you know, every kid wants to be a scuba diver. They're writing stories about scuba diving. They, you know, have love for certain animals because of that. I have a lot of students. I've been teaching a very long time. This is my 30th year. And so I have a lot of students who I'm friends with in social media. And some of them still to this day say, I remember all your scuba diving stories. I got my dive certification, or I love sharks now. So it definitely is inspirational for them to see that, you know, they could go deep in the water too, because a lot of them have never even been to the ocean where I live. So,
yeah, I'll definitely say so the age group that I mainly work with is 2 to 3 year olds. So we're like in the stage of trying and failing, and so climbing's the perfect thing. We have a lot of boulders that are on our playground, and so oftentimes we talk about the idea of support, so encouraging others to give it a try, and like it's okay if you slide down. But then also what's been really great is like parents have been sending me photos of their kids. Either they've been going to the rock gym and trying it for the first time, and they got out of the comfort zone, or they're climbing like at the playground and they're saying like, oh, I'm burning out. And so, you know, it's like those little small steps of like giving them space to try and fail and then see where it goes from there.
That's awesome. All right.
Mine's not really a sport, but the sport of writing. So I share the process with my students, and I show them like how hard it is and how, you know, determined sometimes you have to be, because I've gotten a lot of rejections before. And so I have this one little presentation that I put together for my students, and I share with them every year, and I say, okay, this is what I wrote to, this editor, and then this is what came back, and then this is what I wrote back again. And it's, it's just, again, it's that perseverance sometimes. And, there's a steep learning curve sometimes with whatever it is, whether it's a sport or writing or, whatever it is. So I think that's important for kids to see that.
For sure. And you talked about what's hard about it. What's one of the most fun things about writing?
Oh my gosh. The fun thing is to meet these people. Look who I got to talk to. Look who I became friends with. And, that has been the last few books that I've written have been about women. The book I'm writing right now is about women. And I'm meeting such incredible people. It's opening my aperture. It's opening up my heart. It's opening up, the realm of possibilities. And I just feel like it's so important to share my experience meeting these people who have done, these incredible things. So that is the fun part. I mean, there's lots of fun parts, but for sure, meeting people has been really spectacular.
That's wonderful. Angela, there's a few questions for you. I'm going to kind of combine them. Could you share a little bit more about your experience on Everest is one? And even though it's not just about the summit, after coming so far, was that difficult? And also just if there's a really challenging mountain climb experience, would you be able to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's a great question. Climbing big mountains, like 8,000 meter peaks, it's a team effort, and you have to approach the entire expedition. I mean, our expedition was like over 2 months long. And I mean, talk about an endurance event. And it's not something that you can do without the help of others. And the unsung heroes of Everest are certainly the Sherpa folk who work so hard to set up the camps and fix the ropes and haul the big loads. And you don't hear much about them, but they do the brunt work. They do the work that's not so glamorous. And when I was on Everest, I went to climb it with an amputee who was a friend and colleague. I was working with him at the college at the time, and it was his third attempt. And so he put together a team of friends that were competent mountaineers to help him climb the mountain. So the expedition was about him. It wasn't about me. And I had to remember that throughout, that the goal is to get Tom to the top, and I'm going to do everything I can. And I got an opportunity to go for the summit when he was sick, but unfortunately we had like 70-mile-an-hour winds blowing across the summit ridge. So it was, for me, it was like one of the things that I love about my sport is like, it was a decision point, and the consequences of my sport and all of our sports are severe if we don't make good decisions. And so for me, that's what it's about. It's about not getting to the summit, but coming back to tell the stories and coming back to do it again. And I probably wouldn't go back to Everest because there's so many beautiful mountains in the world that I'd love to climb. And I've already seen a lot of Everest, and it was remarkable, but I'd rather put my energy somewhere where I haven't been.
Cool. Well, thanks for sharing. I'm thinking about, this probably would apply to any of you athletes, but is there a moment that you can recall that you just knew you were where you wanted to be, that this was your sport, this is your passion? Like, is there any memory that kind of just comes to mind? Maybe one of you, if you haven't shared already, want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll share something. I think what you talk about, Angela, about the journey element of it and not necessarily getting to the summit or getting to the end of something, because there's so many times on mountain bike trips that I've done, is even as much as traveling on the plane to getting from the airport to your hotel, like all those in between pieces where you meet people so serendipitously that you never would have met otherwise. And I think just some of those times when you're out in nature and it's so quiet and there's nobody else around, and just having that total moment of just peace and accomplishment and just reverence for being able to do it at all, because there's a lot of people that'll never have the opportunity, whether it be through health or resources or just not even having exposure to some of the stuff that we've all gotten to do. So I think that's another really cool thing about the book too, because it could be a story in this book that really kind of jabs somebody to, oh, I want to try diving or caving or mountaineering or mountain biking or whatever it happens to be. So I think just knowing that, you know, the things in our youth that really kind of just stuck with us, that got us on this trajectory, now we're able to maybe and hopefully instill some of that into a young person, and particularly young girls, that will forever change who they are as people too. So I think that's the reverence piece for me, is just sometimes having this overwhelming, where you'll even just shed a tear. It's just so beautiful or so inspiring that you're just kind of overwhelmed with everything. And that's that passion piece that really just kind of sticks with you. And I still get that all the time too. So I definitely know that I'm in the right place at the right time.
I would agree. I really agree with what everyone has said, and everybody's word was my word. It is amazing how we have so many threads through this that are similar, but it is a feeling and it is a freedom. And I think, well, was my moment my first dive? And I think it probably was. I saw a shark right away and I thought, I love this. But really, it's about that peace that you get that for me felt like nothing else I can feel on land. And I even had, before the pandemic, I was diving, and after the dive, this man who had been on the dive with me came up and he said, I had to come over close to you because at one point I thought you weren't breathing because you were so relaxed under the water. And that's that feeling. I feel like I'm just, you know, almost meditating when I'm under there. And it's not something that I've gotten anywhere else in my life, no matter how I've tried. And it seems like a lot of you are saying the same thing.
Yeah. Sara, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, we're all basically saying the same thing, but another word for it is destiny. I mean, when you know you're doing what you love, everything just starts falling into place naturally. And I think everyone, I don't know if you guys agree with me or not, but what happened with me with parkour, it's just when I started pursuing the sport, it's just this feeling of like, this is what I want to do. I don't want to ever stop doing this. This is like the best feeling that I get from it. And it creates a discipline for me as well. I mean, it shaped my life for the better. So, yeah.
That's incredible. Let's see. There is a question from Daisy. Are there athletes that you find inspiring? I know some of you have mentioned folks, but is there anyone that you find inspiring in your respective sport or not in your sport?
Everybody here.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else come to mind? If not, no worries.
I mean, I can't not shout out the women's soccer team and all their work as activists. I'm a huge believer in, yes, we're doing this thing, and it's, as Sara was saying, it's driven by love, and then there's this magnetism that happens to your life when you're doing this thing that you are called to do. And then as you grow as a person, you end up having a platform and a voice and a trust in an expanded audience. And I absolutely respect and love anybody who is using that platform to care for other people that don't have that platform, for voices that are not as able to be amplified as their own. And so I really respect the women's soccer team for that.
Great. Well said. If any of you all, I know some of you are coming from far away, but if anyone is more local, do you guys have any places that you'd recommend to check out kind of in the DMV area? Or
I think I'm probably the only other local person in the of Maryland and DC. Oh yes, and for climbing, if you're thinking about gyms, there's a few gyms in our area. Earth Tracks. They have a couple of locations in Columbia. They have one in Crystal City, Rockville, Baltimore, and then there's another one called Sport Rock that's in like the Virginia area. And if you're thinking about going outside and kind of closer to the DC area where a lot of instruction happens, Great Falls National Park or Carter Rock, which is a very classic like top rope area. And then you start going out further in like Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Seneca, and things like that. But we have some spaces around us.
Cool. All right. And
I'm local too, and there's tons of dive shops in Northern Virginia, but just know that your open water dives are going to be cold. So be prepared to freeze on your open water dives because they're in quarries.
Bill, you know all about cold water dives.
I was going to say DC's the tropics compared to me.
How is it diving in an iceberg, Jill?
Yeah, she's dove inside an iceberg before. Huh. Makes me cold just thinking about it.
No. Tell you what, we're going to kind of get down to it. I've got a question for you, Anne, and then I'll toss a similar one out to the group. But do you have any new projects that you're working on, Anne, or what's next for you? And then after Anne goes, if you guys can be thinking about, are there any, like, what's your next goal? Like, are there any new goals in your sport that you want to tackle next? And then Anne, we'll start with you.
Yeah. Well, actually, this has been announced. So normally I'm a little bit more, closed about new projects, but my rock star agent decided that, to put that out there. So, which is fantastic. So the next book is actually called High Flyers, and it's with Chicago Review Press again. Fantastic people over there. And it's all about aviators. So it's got altitude. So there's lower altitude, people like helicopters, balloonists, balloon pilot, bush pilot. And then there's the next altitude, which is commercial and military. And then there's astronauts. And the people that I'm talking to, I mean, it's amazing. Like yesterday, I just, I talked to this celebrity, and I talked to people high up in the government, and I'm not going to give anything else away, but they've been pretty, and the thing is, again, like I would never have thought of, that person would never talk to me, but I just, send an email out, and I said, contacted either their agent or, however I needed to contact them. And most of the time these people are absolutely willing to talk to you. So that was, yeah, so I'm actually really, really enjoying this new project. It's pretty fun.
That's awesome. Actually, quick follow-up for you, Anne. Are you going to research by living any of this? Are you going to go in a helicopter, on a balloon? Are there any plans in the works for that?
Oh, wow. What a great question. Now, you know what? Whoever said that, that's just going to plant the seed in my head. Now I'm going to have to, go to the, on the SpaceX team or whatever. I'm gonna have to go to the International Space Station. Thanks. Now I need $20 million, which I don't have. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. There's probably lots of really fun things to do though, right?
Yeah.
Hands-on research.
Yeah, a lot of fun things. Well, we'll stay tuned for that next project. That's exciting. All right, our lovely panel here. Does anybody have something that they're excited about pursuing, a new goal in your sport or in life? And if you want to share, you can go ahead and just either raise your hand or jump in there. Okay, Brittany?
Yeah, I'm currently in training. So hopefully in July, I'll be climbing Baker. And then for climbing, I'm working on getting my single pitch instructor. So those are two major things I'm working on right now.
Awesome. Sara?
I eventually wanted to make a clothing line, especially for the women in my religion who wear the hijab. The main thing is for them is most of them feel insecure when they start pursuing the sport. And it's really hard for them to find a specific outfit or specific hijab to just do the sport without getting bothered of what they wear. So the hijabs that I have explored while training in parkour, I think I finally have something, but like I just want to eventually put it out so everyone can wear it, so they won't have to be bothered to finding the right cloth that doesn't make you over sweat, that doesn't fall off. So it's in my mind all the time. I just have to like, that's my next project though.
Yeah, that's really neat. I hope that all works out.
Hope so.
Melanie?
I'll share something really fast. I've already talked about the activist work that we're doing, so that's sort of the goal, but I was sort of called to share about the moment story where you're like, oh, is there a moment that really sticks out? And the reason I want to share this is I jumped over the Great Pyramids and I got to fly my parachute right next to the middle pyramid. And that was a moment in my life that it's unparalleled. It's by far my top skydive. And I have a lot of different jumps in a lot of different areas and competitions and whatnot. The reason I bring that up is that jump happened when I had 11,000 skydives and 22 years in the sport. And so the point is that even though you're like, you think those mind altering moments can't happen if you can like get good at something, they can happen at any point along the path, whether you're new or very, very experienced.
No, thank you for sharing, Jill.
Yeah, I think the next expedition that I'm looking forward to completing is Expedition COVID and getting a vaccine. I am going to be the most excited person when I get my shot. But once that's all over, I've got some exploration work documenting some U.S. naval shipwrecks that went down in World War II in Canada. And then right now, still during these COVID times, I'm on my own exploring Canada's longest underwater cave system.
Very cool. Let's see, Anne-Marie.
I'm now fully vaccinated, so I have already started planning to make up for lost dive time. It's killing me. So I already have a trip planned for summer, hopefully more than one. And yeah, I'm just gonna dive my head off. It's been a long time.
That's awesome. Angela?
Yeah, mine is, I'm going to share something a little different, not what I want to do, but just the common thread that I noticed throughout this that I think is so key is fear. And we all have it, and it's here to keep us alive. And it serves a very important function. And I think that one thing that ties us all together in these outdoor sports, in these thrill seeker arenas that are perceived as so dangerous and like, why would anyone risk their life doing stuff like this, is that it really helps us understand what's real fear, what's real danger and what's perceived danger. And there's so much projection of fear in the world right now. And I think it's really important that we get into these sports which enable us to make decisions as to like what has a consequence here and what doesn't. And so I just love the thing that ties us all together is that it's not that like we're just doing things haphazardly, but we're really conscientiously thinking and making decisions about the choices which are safe or not safe. And there's a lot of danger in the world, but there's a lot of things that aren't dangerous. And we have to push ourselves to explore a little bit and be okay with making mistakes and not dying though. Don't die. keep it safe out there.
Yes, keep it safe. Thank you, Angela. That was beautifully said. Elladee, did you want to share?
Yeah, for me, I just continue to adventure on my bike. And one of the things I've really been into the last few years is documenting these adventures through video, photography, writing. And exactly what you said, Angela, just bringing to the forefront more of the preparation that takes a lot of the fear out of the things that we do, because we all have to plan and, strategize how we're going to do what we do. It's not haphazard. So I think there's a lot of education that we can spread around to people so that when they do partake in these things, right away, a lot of that fear is gone because you feel confident in your preparation. So when I'm going out and doing some of the things I do, I try to think of creative ways that I can obviously not only show the beautiful surroundings, but also how to get yourself into those beautiful surroundings in a safe way that kind of takes away the fear and the mystery of it.
Yeah, preparation is so important. Thanks, Elladee. To close out, we've got a few shout outs. Just wanted to let you guys know. Deborah Ross just wants to say, I love Angela's last point. So thanks for sharing that, Angela. And Barbara Schuler says, not a question, but wanted to say that you all just light up when you describe your sport. So great to see. All right. So thank you, viewers, for those questions. And thank you so much, Anne, and all of the athletes joining us tonight. Remember, viewers, you can still click the link in the chat to purchase Thrill Seekers, and you can check out our website for more books by the author or authors. And as an independent bookstore, just know we appreciate your support. You can check out our website for updated event listings and follow our Children and Teens department on social media under @KidsInProse. So that about wraps up our time tonight. Thank you again all for joining us. We wish you well in all of your future adventures, and